You're listening to Skate of Thrones, your go-to podcast for dialed-in LA Kings coverage.
Welcome back to Skate of Thrones, your favorite podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. As always, I'm your host, Casey Kasliner, as the Kings get one of their biggest wins of the season, arguably their biggest win of the year, taking down the top team in the league, the Washington Capitals, who are riding a 5-game winning streak heading into tonight on Thursday. The Kings halt that, win a game of their own. It's a 3-0 shutout, and a lot of storylines in this game. Of course, Alex Ovechkin coming in 9 goals short of the record of Wayne Gretzky, 894. He doesn't score. In fact, of course, the Capitals didn't score at all. Darcy Kuemper with the shutout, and that's his third shutout of the year against his old team, no less. And that's a big storyline as well. Pierre-Luc Dubois returning to Los Angeles for the first time as a Washington Capital. We obviously know that his time with the Kings was pretty messy and brief, one season with them, and that ended pretty poorly. Did not have the season fans expected last year. And of course, Matt Roy as well, returning the hard-nosed blue liner. And he, of course, was pretty beloved in LA, had a good year last year. And so a lot of storylines, but Darcy Kuemper was great, 21 saves, and the Kings get the victory, scoring in periods 1 and 3. The second period was not a scoring period for either team, but Jim Hiller praised it, said it was one of their best second periods of the year, and really just preached the fact that the Kings played a full 60 minutes. They played a full game, and that's why they won. They brought the energy. They were aggressive. They forechecked hard. They backchecked hard. Like, this was one of the best Kings games of the year, and you could feel it in the arena. It was a playoff-style atmosphere. It was a playoff-style brand of hockey for the Kings, and so let's get into the action. Plenty of boos for Pierre-Luc Dubois. Not going to deny that. A lot of jeers, a lot of yelling at him, and you could hear it in the arena. The fans are passionate about the fact that they won this trade. It's looking like a win-win trade. It's not that the Capitals, didn't benefit either. I mean, the Capitals are the best team in the league. They're the best offensive team in the league. But one interesting note is the Capitals aren't the best power play team in the league. They're around middle of the table, 13th in efficiency in the power play. And so that would come back to bite them a little bit. But the Kings got the first goal of the game. It was Warren Foegele, who's just been such a great addition. That was his 19th goal of the year. And his line with Phillip Danault and Trevor Moore has just been so good lately. And not just scoring, but really feeding the puck in, forechecking. That's the third line for the Kings. And it really feels like really every line, I'll say, has been really good. I mean, line 1 has not been as productive lately, but the bottom 9 for the Kings has been really solid lately. And really building up that brand of hockey the Kings preach, is playing that hard-nosed play, putting in shots, trying to get shots for rebounds, but also playing really good defense. That play for Foegele, he shoots off the rebound, kind of poking the puck on the right side of Charlie Lindgren, his left, and great forechecking there from Trevor Moore and Phillip Danault. Good pass from Moore to feed in to Foegele, and it's 1-0 Kings. And that third line, like I said, just playing so good. That would be pretty much it, though, for the first period. Not much action. The Kings, struggled a little bit early with offense. They still have been struggling also on odd man breaks, and that's something that, I think that can tighten up a little bit with the line chemistry going forward. So we'll see how that goes. But in the second period, Darcy Kuemper making some really good saves. And one interesting play that a lot of people were talking about in the press box is Matt Roy and Alex Ovechkin had a 2-on-1 on the Kings. And Roy elected to shoot instead of passing to Ovi. And I mean, Roy has a really good shot for a defenseman, but like off-looking his, the guy who's chasing a goal record and is one of the best goal scorers in the league right now. I mean, obviously one of the best, going to be the best goal scorer of all time, in just a matter of time. And Roy had a good shot, but it didn't go in. Pierre-Luc Dubois had a penalty of his own. The Kings did not have a great, power play unit tonight, but they did score on it at least. And they've proven this year they don't really need to score on the power play much. They're not a big goal-scoring team. They also have the fewest power play opportunities in the league, so that kind of goes, in favor of that as well. The Kings' PK was also phenomenal tonight. Absolutely blanked the Capitals. We know that Kings gave up 8 power plays last game against the Islanders, and as much as it sucks for the Kings to give up that many power plays, they did shut all of them down, and they did the same against the Capitals, and in a pretty good fashion. The Kings gave up 12 penalty minutes. Some of those came at the end in sort of a weird scrum that happened at the end with some roughing calls given out, but at the end of the day, the Kings' PK did its job. And the Kings offense slowed down in the second period. They didn't shoot well. They didn't have as many opportunities as the first period. Their decision making seemed a little bit inhibited. And the Caps did a good job, shutting them down. And the Kings did, an even better job given how good the Caps offense has been this year. I mean, like I mentioned, they're a stout team offensively. They have plenty of options and really deep team as well. And so, yeah, the Kings were racking up a few penalties, but didn't come back to bite them. I'll give it to Charlie Lindgren, though. He made some really good saves as well. Then we go to the third period, and that's a period both the Kings and the Capitals both play very well in. But the Kings would prove to be the better team tonight, scoring 2 goals in the beginning of the third period. Fiala gets the first one, a one-timer snipe from the right circle off a really good cross-ice feed from Anze Kopitar, and picks the corner, goes in, and then like 30 seconds later, the Kings score again. And this time it's Quinton Byfield who has scored his 5th goal in as many games, so on a 5-game goal streak, and a great feed from Fiala. And Fiala is the player of the game for me for the Kings. I mean, he's been so good in the year 2025. Obviously, like at the turn of the calendar year, there were a lot of questions about him. Are the Kings going to trade him? What's his presence like with Jim Hiller, chemistry-wise? What's going on with him psychologically? Why is he taking so many penalties? No, I mean, Kevin Fiala has been incredible since the turn of the new calendar year, and he showed that tonight. I mean, scored his 25th goal, and it was a really nice one. And then, of course, feeding Quinton Byfield. And you got to give credit to Vladislav Gavrikov on that play with the forecheck. You can really feel it in this Kings team right now. Plenty of energy just in lines 1 through 4. Some lines are more productive than others right now. That's clear. But you can feel the gelling start to come. And it's really shown over this 4-game win streak. Of course, the Kings have been inconsistent and streaky this year. So can't promise that, this is going to sustain. But there's 18 games left in the season. And one notable fact I have to bring up is the Kings, with the Oilers losing tonight to the Devils, are now 2nd place in the Pacific Division. Why does that matter? Well, although the Kings would be playing the Oilers probably either way if they're 2nd or 3rd in the Pacific, that gives them home ice advantage if the season ended today. And we know the Kings are the best team in the league at home and really not great on the road. So, yeah, the Kings 22-3-4 at home. I mean, that's remarkable. Only 3 losses in regulation. I mean, I would, if I was a betting man, I would put money on the Kings over the Oilers, even though the Oilers have won the last 3 playoff series against the Kings, because the fact that the Kings have been playing so well at home, and if they have that home ice advantage, that can be the difference in the NHL in the playoffs. So, yeah, definitely something to look at, and Fiala just on fire right now. I want to talk about Andrei Kuzmenko for a minute. Obviously, the Kings are undefeated since acquiring the winger from the Flyers, but he hasn't been super impactful in terms of on the score sheet. He's been pretty bad with giveaways, I'll be honest. But I think, it's one of those things where the Kings were sort of silently trying to find a way to get Trevor Lewis out of the lineup. He was unproductive, and it's not that Kuzmenko has been super productive, but he kind of gives them the ability to have 4 lines that can compete. He is making an impact sort of in unappreciated ways, whether that be, going net front, parking himself there, or, creating feeds. I mean, he had a really good shot on net. He had the first shot on goal for the Kings this game. And so it feels like a matter of time where, he's going to pop off. He's had a lot of good years in his career. So keep an eye on him for sure. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Kings hold on to win 3-0. And going into the press conference, it was Darcy Kuemper, Kevin Fiala, and of course Jim Hiller. Darcy really talked about the penalty kill in front of him and how that was a big factor in the win tonight. And sort of how they've, embraced the challenge of playing top teams. We've seen the Kings beat really good teams this year: Winnipeg, Vegas, Minnesota, other teams as well. I mean, the Kings playing on home ice certainly gives them confidence. They've beaten good teams on the road as well, but they know that, if they play their game, their brand of hockey, they can go into any game and win it. They also didn't give the Caps freebies in this game. That was another thing Darcy Kuemper talked about, and it's true. I mean, the Kings were pretty tight on defense. They played a full 60 minutes. They didn't give sloppy turnovers away for the most part, and they stuck to what they're good at, and that's playing on the rush, in transition, forechecking well. They played defense first. They know they really want home ice in playoffs. They have that on their radar. And Jim Hiller talked about sort of the last 18 games and said it's too early to start thinking about playoffs specifically. But of course, they know they want that 2nd or 1st seed in the Pacific. And so that's certainly in the back of their minds. Kevin Fiala talked about how the team has played really fast and patient recently. It feels like playoff hockey. He also, talked about his sort of symbiotic relationship with Quinton Byfield. They each make each other better. They complement each other. He said that Quinton Byfield has grown a lot. We've really seen that from him. I think Kings fans and the Kings themselves are just hoping for, sustained consistency from Byfield. We've seen him go on these streaks before and dip off. Now he's on a 5-game goal streak. He's looking to continue that. He's getting hot at the right time. We saw last year, it was sort of the opposite. He was really hot at the beginning of the season and then sort of fell off and disappeared. So I think it's an encouraging sign for Kings fans. Hiller and Fiala talked about keeping Ovechkin under control. Obviously, he's a factor in every game he plays in. He's one of the best hockey players of all time, but they kept him under control, and that's what they needed to do. Jim Hiller talked about the team playing a complete game. That's something he hasn't necessarily talked about this year, especially in some wins where the Kings, they get the win, but he's not necessarily satisfied with all 3 periods. He even said, in the second period, they didn't score. It was still one of their best second periods of the year. And the Kings are not a second period team. They're a third period team. He said they back-checked well, played well in the rush. They expect to beat the top teams. That's the bottom line here. And he said this was one of Fiala's best games. And we know that him and Fiala have sort of an interesting relationship. Hiller said that, Fiala and him are sort of similar personality-wise. We know that, Fiala is Swiss and Hiller's Canadian, and sort of like that might surprise people. But I think it's interesting. They both have a lot of emotion and confidence in themselves. And so that's one thing to think about. And of course, we know that they were having a lot of one-on-one conversations earlier in the year, and that sort of changed maybe Fiala's tune. We've seen him better in 2025. The Kings are 8-0-3 in their last 11 home games, so no regulation losses, and that matches their longest home point streak in franchise history, and that matched the 01-02 season and the 90-91 seasons, and so they're in really good company. Washington's a really physical team. They're a great team. They're a Stanley Cup contender. They're having the season of their lives. It feels like 2018 all over again, but the Kings put the effort down. They played great, and that's what they needed to do. I mean, they love playing at home, and they just hope for sustained success the rest of the way. But I mean, this was, I don't want to call it like a perfect performance from the Kings because there's still things they could work on, but it was like one of the best Kings performances we've seen in a while. I think the discipline is the big thing, but they won 4 games in a row. Stuff's working. The defense looks great. They've only allowed 1 goal in the last 2 games. You have to like it if you're a Kings fan. The Kings will round off the homestand against Nashville, who's a struggling team, on Saturday, and so that'll be at 5 p.m. Another thing of note, the Kings have not changed the lineup really at all since acquiring Andrei Kuzmenko, and I think it's worked. So if it ain't broken, don't fix it. But Kuemper is really, doing a good job, and I think they want him, fully going and staying consistent the rest of the way. So that'll just about wrap things up. The Kings blank the Washington Capitals 3-0. A great performance all around for LA on defense, forechecking, back-checking, scoring, you name it. 27 shots for the Kings. And Charlie Lindgren, I mean, he did a good job for the Capitals. I thought they have a really great tandem with him and Logan Thompson, but the Kings put up 21 shots themselves. It was a physical game. And yeah, the Kings, they did what they needed to do, and you can't really scoff at it. Warren Fogle with a goal, Kevin Fiala, and then Quinton Byfield, and then of course Fiala had 2 points on the night with the assist on the Byfield goal, and that was a really nice play all around for the Kings. But that's going to wrap things up. We'll have coverage for you against Nashville on Saturday. As always, I'm your host, Casey Kasliner, thanking you for listening to Skate of Thrones. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you liked it, and have a great rest of your night. I'll see you in the next one.